It's just fantastic. Captain's log, subdates 210413.2. I've been doing some research into the Russian justice system, and I've got to admit, they are far more strict than I am, and I believe we need to, here at the ISO Cubes, implement changes to be more strict, and also infringe on more human rights. We shall not be beaten by Mother Russia. Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome inmate number 068, Eduard Seleznev from Mother Russia. He has another name, but we'll get to that later. I don't really want to spoil too much. Fun fact though, I'm almost certain I've seen this man on a Russian prison documentary that was translated into English, so I spent quite a lot of time watching Russian prison documentaries, like Black Dolphin, but I couldn't find him anywhere. If anyone has seen this man on a Russian prison documentary, because you are also, like myself, a massive nerd, please do let me know in the comments down below. Eduard Seleznev is actually so famous within Mother Russia that he has his own Wikipedia page, which does in fact help us when it comes to talking about who he is, what he's done, and then we can get to why we're talking about him now since his crimes ended in 2018. Seleznev was born in 1969 in the town Arkhangelsk. He was, at a young age, sent to a boarding school and didn't know his parents. School did notice at this time he was slow, uninitiated, and also a habitual smoker who already had a penchant for crime. In 1984, he graduated from a separate school as a bricklayer, and while living in a rundown hostel, worked odd jobs to make ends meet. On several occasions, he was convicted of embezzlement, and after his release in 2000, he had been living in unlocked basements and homeless shelters. It isn't until 2002 where we find that Eduard Seleznev commits one of his more serious crimes. Yes, embezzlement is quite serious, but it was on a far smaller scale and it didn't involve actual life, which is where 2002 now comes in handy. He was in 2002 convicted of a double murder, and he served 13 years in prison before his release in 2015. Now on that charge alone, considering what the Russian criminal justice system usually does, he would have gotten life, and in Russia life means until the day you die. But for some odd reason, for a double murder, he did 13 years. Okay. Interestingly here as well is, when he was released in 2015, there isn't much in the way of a system that helps people when they leave prison in Russia, and he didn't have anything to fall back on, so he kinda slipped. He was back living on the streets, and he survived by killing stray cats, dogs, and the odd burb or two. Now he did have to do something rather spectacular with their bodies, because also there is a distinct lack of dental system, so he didn't have any teeth. It was very difficult for him to eat meat that had not been blended, which, by the way, if anyone's ever done before, I don't recommend it. The texture's really bad. In March of 2016, not long after his release from prison, Seleznev killed his first victim, another homeless person who he had met at a homeless shelter with whom he actually shared a room. To do this, he waited until the man was asleep and he stabbed him. He then dismembered the remains with an axe and then liquefied some of the remains, which he later slurped down. The nickname, by the way, the Arkhangelsk Cannibal. There is a curl on the first R, but I really can't do it. Because he couldn't eat all that meat at once, he then took the remains, packaged them up in bags, and threw them into a river in the Isogorsk district. 2 years later, because Seleznev had moved up in the world, he'd actually started sharing an apartment with another man. But it didn't take long, and I think many of you can tell what happened next. He killed the man while he also was in his sleep by stabbing him, and then ate him in similar ways to the first one, and threw the remains that he wasn't able to preserve and or eat into Lake Butejino in the Mayaskaya Gorska district. But because he wanted a home, he stayed in the flat and then began working at a local meat processing plant. That seems appropriate, especially if he wants more victims. He'll now know how to get the finest filet, the finest rump. I can't curl the R's. Not very well, I will admit. I could continue with jokes here about spare ribs, but I'm sure you're all sick of that. Interestingly though, the relatives of that man came to visit. They even travelled to the apartment, only to find that Seleznev was there. They questioned him about the roommate's whereabouts, and he said that the man had moved to St. Petersburg because he had been offered a job concerning, air quotes, something to do with the forest. Seleznev also claimed that that same family member had borrowed a backpack and left 35,000 rubles for the rent and gone on his merry way. The family members then ordered him to clean the mess that he caused while living there. While inspecting the fridge, they found an odd-looking meat package lying on one of the rafts. He said it was raw fish. No, it wasn't. And upon further investigation, they'd actually found a jacket with Seleznev's passport in, as well as a bank card with the name of a man that they did not know. Seleznev didn't have a passport, according to statements he'd already given, so they called the police. Interestingly, Seleznev was even taken to the site where he had actually committed and dumped bodies. These are the pictures, because he actually confessed very quickly about this. He said that he had developed a more cannibalistic taste over the last 2 to 3 years because of all the animals he had eaten. He was psychologically evaluated, and they had determined him to be sane and aware of his action in spite of the claims that he was hearing voices. I'm sure those voices were just Rasputin, nothing more. When the trial began though, because yes, this did go to trial, Seleznev recanted his confession and demanded a jury trial, believing himself to be innocent. That meat though really didn't do him any favours. When does fish ever look like pork? Unsurprisingly, for everyone except for Seleznev, there was a verdict, guilty, and with it comes a sentence, life, in a special regime colony, but he also has to pay 1 million rubles in restitution to the victims' family members. That was in January 2020. 1 million rubles in British pounds is £9,752.71. In a special regime colony, you have to work, and you'll earn a little money. A big chunk of that, most if not all, will go to the family, and you'll earn bugger all. So they'll get 1 million rubles, I guess, maybe if you live long enough, which is unlikely since Seleznev is in his early 50s already. So why has this all come up now? Well, because Seleznev appealed his life sentence. He had argued something quite unusual. In fact, the argument was, in the Russian code, there are no charges for cannibalism, so they had to get him on murder and dumping a body, or, to give it its correct term, misusing the victim's body parts. Understandably, this failed, and his appeal was rejected. Eduard Seleznev, inmate 068. Get in your cube, you disgusting individual. Don't worry, we'll do you a solid. We're gonna feed you what we believe you need. Turnips. You will only eat turnips because you're Russian. Turnips for breakfast, turnips for lunch, and turnips for dinner. You are welcome. As we're done, I'd like to know what you all think. Please do let me know in the comments down below. For Let's See on Twitch, have a great day everyone, and thank you all very much for listening.